Let's talk about Tucker Carlson's latest take because it is absurd. Have a watch.
They're enemies of Western civilization. Who are these people? Are they the Muslims? Are they the Jews? Are they, whatever people have always... No. They're not the Muslims. They're not the Jews. They're not the blacks. They're not whatever group you're blaming. They're any individual who doesn't acknowledge the human soul. Period. That the rights begin and end with the individual, not the group. Therefore, an attack on Western civilization looks like this. It's tribalism. It's identity politics. It's DEI. It's whatever. It's Zionism. It's any belief system that begins with the understanding that one group is morally superior to other groups. We don't think in terms of groups as Christians or Westerners. We think in terms of the individual. It's literally that simple. And the reason it's important to say this out loud is because there are so many interests vying for the mantle of defender of Western civilization. What does it mean to defend the West? I'm a Netanyahu. I'm a defender of Western civilization. No, you're its enemy. Of course. You're literally its main enemy. Why? Because I don't like you. It has nothing to do with that. The reason that Netanyahu is an enemy of Western civilization is because he believes and has said out loud that we're fighting these people because of how they were born, because of their inherent evil. We don't believe in that. We believe every person is inherently flawed, but salvageable because God made every person. Why are the Nazis bad? The Nazis are bad because for that exact same reason. And so if you want to defend the West, you defend a single proposition, and everything emanates from that proposition. The individual has rights, which were given to him by God. Period. You don't have to be a Christian to defend that principle. There are a ton of Muslims and Jews and everybody else who believe that. So it's not about hate this group, hate that group. All of that is anti-Western.
So let's be clear. Tucker's telling us that Zionism is the belief that one group is superior to all others. Now, Zionism in the real world is simply the belief that the Jewish people are a nation and deserve a homeland. It's essentially saying Jews want to be able to live. We'd like not to be homeless anymore. It's not exactly a Bond villain manifesto. And then he says that Netanyahu believes that Palestinians are born evil. I'm sorry, but that is just a lie. It's not Zionism, and it's certainly not Israeli policy. Yes, many people who are Zionists and pro-Israel believe that the Palestinian cause has been always about trying to destroy the Jewish people, and therefore we see it as a cynical project rather than a genuine desire for nationalism. But that's not a view about every single Palestinian individual. It's making an objective assessment about the nature of a campaign that's been trying to destroy the Jewish people and destroy Jews since even before Zionism existed, by the way, because it goes all the way back. Arab and Islamic violence towards Jews goes all the way back in the land of Israel, by the way, many centuries prior to the establishment of the State of Israel. So Tucker has basically invented a whole doctrine about what Zionism is and assigned it to millions of people. He's made a group generalization. He's guilty of what he accuses the Zionists of. But it gets better, because Tucker then says, with a straight face, as Christians and in the West, we don't think in terms of groups. We only think as individuals, and we only think about individuals. Now, I have to give him credit. This is bold. This is like saying in Britain, we don't drink tea, or in Italy, we don't really think about pasta. Western civilization is not just built on individual identity, it's also built on group identity too. Nations, borders, citizenship, the British people, the American people, we the people, our civilization. These are group identities. Christianity itself is a group identity. I mean, it's literally a community. And Tucker himself constantly says things like, our country, our people, our culture. He loves groups. He relies on group identity for half his arguments. He's the group identity hype man. Except, apparently, when Jews do it, then suddenly it's forbidden. And then comes the real masterpiece, the pièce de résistance. He claims that Netanyahu, because he thinks the Jewish people are a nation, is therefore the enemy of Christians in the West. Imagine telling the leader of a country in the Middle East that most directly aligns with Western values at every strategic turn, You, sir, are the enemy of the West because you believe in borders and national identity. It's like telling the Pope he's anti-Christian because he goes to church. It doesn't even rise to the level of confusion. It's self-parody. And then, because no Tucker monologue is complete without an unnecessary historical detour, he brings in the Nazis. He says the Nazis were evil because they saw people in groups and hated groups, and therefore he's against hating groups. Beautiful sentiment, very noble. But 30 seconds later, he then hates a group. Right there, in real time. I'm against hating groups. Now let me tell you about a group I really can't stand. The Zionists. It's self-refutation speedrun. He should get a Guinness World Record. If you're against hating groups, brilliant. So am I. But maybe don't demonize the entire Jewish national movement 12 seconds after saying that. And let's also just remind ourselves that Zionism wasn't born out of dreams of superiority. It was born out of generations of persecution and statelessness. If anything, Zionism says we'd like to exist in our ancient God-given homeland, by the way, which he should believe if he believes in the Bible, and we'd like to exist safely. You know, the scandalous, outrageous concept that 193 countries already enjoy. And here's where we have to go a level deeper, because Tucker's rhetoric isn't happening in a vacuum. It's tapping into something very old, something that I've seen him touch on when he gets a bit deeper into his obsession with the Jews and Israel. And it's something that the rabbis told us centuries ago in the Talmud was the root of anti-Semitism. Tucker says his problem is with Zionism, and that it's the idea that one group is superior. That's why he doesn't like it. But you notice he only ever sees superiority when Jews assert a collective identity. Not when Americans do. Not when he says America first. Not when Europeans do. Not when Christians do. And this circles back really clearly to what he's really revealing. A discomfort with the idea that the Jewish people are chosen. Not chosen to dominate, but chosen to have a unique spiritual mission, a covenant, a relationship with God, a distinct identity, to be the light to the nations. And this is what anti-Semitism is a resistance to. It's a resentment to, maybe a jealousy of as well. And the rabbis were right. Much of anti-Semitism through history is ultimately a resentment of Jewish distinctiveness, of the Jewish mission. Not Jewish power, Jewish difference. And when Jews finally take steps to preserve that difference, by protecting themselves, by reclaiming a homeland, by refusing to disappear, people who are uncomfortable with Jewish chosenness suddenly declare it as evil, as supremacy. This has been the formula for 2,000 years. Jews trying to survive are recast as Jews trying to dominate. And the great irony is that Jewish distinctiveness actually should be a great blessing. Tucker is not saying anything new. He's recycling a very old discomfort dressed up as modern political commentary. So when he says he's against collective identity, the real question isn't, is he against collective identity? Because clearly he isn't. The real question is, why does Jewish collective identity bother him in a way no other group identity does? Because that is where the mask slips. That is where the principles evaporate. That is where you see the double standard shining in neon lights. And the moment you understand that, everything else clicks into place. If believing your people have a homeland makes you an enemy of the West, which is ironic because it's based on the Bible, which is the foundation of the West, but if that is your belief, then every Western leader is an enemy of the West. Trump is an enemy of the West. The founding fathers, notorious anti-Western radicals, are enemies of the West. It's absurd. Here's the bottom line with no theatrics. Zionism is the belief that the Jewish people are a nation with a right to a homeland. If that is supremacism, then every nation on earth is supremacist. But Tucker doesn't think every nation is supremacist, just the Jewish one. And that tells you everything you need to know about the consistency or the motivation of the argument. Look, if he wants to make a world with no nations, no borders, no collective identity, fine. Be terrible, but if that's what he wants, at least he's consistent. But singling out one people on earth for a standard nobody else is held to, that's not moral clarity, that's not Western values, that's not courage, it's a double standard. And double standards applied to Jews, well, history shows us exactly where that leads. So yes, let's absolutely oppose hating groups. Let's be principled. Let's be consistent. But let's start by actually not hating groups. Especially not the one group whose national movement exists because the world spent 2,000 years proving exactly why they needed it. A quick message. We all hear about the Palestinian displacement, or Nakba, of 1948. But you know, there was another, even greater displacement that we haven't been told about. Nearly 1 million Jews were expelled from Arab lands at the exact same time. Watch the trailer for our new and absolutely essential documentary called The Real Nakba. And if you want to watch the full film, just click the link below in the video description. We've all been told about the Nakba, the Palestinian catastrophe of 1948. Around 700,000 Arabs were displaced. But here's what you're rarely told. That displacement didn't come from some Jewish plan for genocide. It wasn't Israel's goal. It wasn't Israel's desire. It happened because Arab leaders launched a war of annihilation. They tried to wipe out the newborn Jewish state, vowing to drive the Jews into the sea. And in the chaos of that war, people fled. Many because their leaders told them to, promising they'd return after victory. But the term Nakba was originally used to describe the fact that the Arabs lost the war, not the displacement. Now the term describes the displacement of war used as a political weapon against Israel. But you know, there was another Nakba you haven't been told about. A catastrophe rooted not in the fog of war, but in the clear, deliberate desire for persecution and genocide. It happened at the very same time, and it led to even more displacement, yet most of the world has never heard of it. Over 850,000 Jews, more than the number of displaced Arabs, were driven from their homes across the Arab world. Communities that had thrived for millennia were uprooted overnight. Families stripped of citizenship, of property, of dignity, assaulted, expelled, forced to flee with nothing but their faith. Why? Because they were Jews. Because Israel dared to exist. Because the Arab League openly orchestrated it, drafting plans in 1947 to freeze Jewish bank accounts, seize property, and intern Jews as enemy nationals. This is the real Nakba, a catastrophe born of pure anti-Semitism. In this JTV documentary, we'll journey country by country, from Baghdad to Cairo, from Sana'a to Tripoli, uncovering buried truths and survivor voices. And no, this isn't a tale of victimhood, it's a saga of endurance, courage, and triumph. Because the Jewish people didn't just survive this Nakba, we rebuilt, we came home. In Israel, our phoenix soared from the ashes. So buckle up and let's dive in. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.